My ex and his wife, my former best friend, hired me to cater their son's meal, but I told them I'd accept if they paid me triple. And now their marriage is falling apart. I'm 35 years old and own a small catering business specializing in party food and desserts. I started it 3 years ago after my divorce, and it's been growing little by little. I don't cater weddings, only birthdays, graduations, family reunions, and other smaller events. My dream is to expand enough to open a storefront instead of working from my kitchen, but that needs more money than I have right now. Last week I got a call that made my stomach hurt. It was from Lisa, my former best friend for over 15 years. We hadn't spoken in 5 years since I found out she was having an affair with my then-husband Tanner. The betrayal came out when I found messages on Tanner's phone that showed they had been secretly seeing each other for over 6 months. I immediately filed for divorce and completely cut them both out of my life. I found out they got married about a year after my divorce was final. I've spent the last 5 years rebuilding my life, starting my business, and moving forward. I've been on dates, but nothing serious until recently. I've been dating David for about 8 months, and things are going well. Lisa started by asking how I was, how my life was going, and stuff like that, as if we were still best friends and she hadn't slept with my husband behind my back. When I stayed quiet, she quickly got to the point. She said she'd seen my business page online and wanted to hire me for her son's birthday party. Tanner, my ex-husband's son, the party would be in 3 weeks. She explained they needed not just a cake, but a whole dessert table with cake pops, cupcakes, cookies, and other sweets. It would be a big event with many guests, including Tanner's family and friends who have money. I told her I'd need to check my calendar and would call her back. Then I hung up as quickly as I could. My hands were shaking as I put the phone down. This wasn't the first time Lisa had tried to contact me. About a month ago, she called me out of the blue saying she wasn't happy with her life and wanted to reconnect. I hung up immediately. I thought she'd understood the message, but apparently not. The business side of me immediately started figuring out how much I could charge for an order that size. It would be a large enough payment to get me closer to opening that shop I've been saving up for, and having my work shown at a party with rich guests might bring in more high-paying clients. But the personal part of me felt sick, not just thinking about seeing Tanner and Lisa again, but about catering the birthday of their son, the boy who exists, because they betrayed me. What doesn't make sense is why they want to hire me specifically. Tanner comes from a wealthy family and has a good job. They could easily hire the most expensive caterer in town. My business isn't well known yet. I mainly get clients through word of mouth and my small social media presence. I can't help but wonder about their reasons. Is Lisa trying to show off how great she is now? Is this a weird attempt at peace? Or even worse, could it be some kind of trap to embarrass me or harm my reputation and business? On the other hand, it's hard to ignore the possible benefits. I thought about what might happen if I said yes. I could limit my contact with them, letting my assistant, my cousin Jenny, who helps me part-time, handle most of the communication. I could just deliver the goods, set them up, and leave quickly. I wouldn't have to make small talk or pretend we were all friends, but I'd still have to see them. I would still have to be in their house, knowing they built their relationship on the ruins of my marriage. I would have to see the child they had together. I spent the whole weekend thinking about this decision. I called my sister Kate for advice, and she thought I should say no. She said, "No amount of money is worth putting yourself in that situation." My mom suggested I charge them 3 times my usual rate, thinking they'd refuse, but if they accepted, at least I'd be well paid for the stress. David was surprisingly practical about it. He said, "It's just business. Take their money and use it to build your future. At least you get something good out of it, and you take money from those two." He offered to come with me for support if I decided to accept. I also talked to some friends. Some thought I should accept because of the business chance, while others were shocked by the idea and told me to stay far away from the people who hurt me so badly. I've built a good life for myself since the divorce. My business is constantly growing. I have a supportive partner and wonderful friends. I'm willing to risk my peace of mind for this chance. Then again, is it smart to turn down a good job just because of my past? Am I letting my past control my future if I reject the offer? Accepting would show I've truly moved on, or would it just open old wounds? I keep thinking about how I would feel watching Lisa and Tanner celebrate their son's birthday, pretending to be a happy family, knowing their happiness was built on my pain. But I also think about how I would feel watching my business grow, knowing I used their money to fund my dreams. I have to give Lisa an answer tomorrow, and I still don't know what to do. My business side says, take the job. My emotional side says, run as fast as you can. I feel stuck between my past and my future. The fact that it was Lisa, not Tanner, who contacted me makes me wonder if he even knows she reached out. Would he be as comfortable with my being there as she seems to be? Or does she have some other plan I'm not seeing? I have to decide tomorrow, and I'm completely torn. This would be the biggest job I've ever had and could open up more chances for me, but at what cost to my mental health? Update 1 first. thanks to everyone who commented on my original post. I read every response even though I didn't have time to reply to most of them. Your thoughts were helpful as I struggled with this decision. After a lot of thinking, I accepted the job. Many of you will probably think I made the wrong choice, and maybe you're right, but the opportunity was too good to pass up from a business point of view. Call me insensitive or greedy if you want, but I chose to put my business goals first over my feelings. I shouldn't miss out on an opportunity like this just because it's them. That would only give them more power over me. I took several steps before committing. First, I asked for full payment up front, which is my usual practice. However, this made sure I wouldn't be left without payment if I decided to cancel at the last minute or if they weren't happy with my work. Second, I kept direct contact with Lisa to a minimum. I had Jenny handle most of the email communication. When phone calls or meetings were necessary, I kept them short and purely professional. I documented everything in case any problems came up later. There was an interesting thing that happened that I didn't expect. During one of our few talks, Lisa mentioned that hiring me was actually Tanner's idea, not hers. Apparently, one of his coworkers had used my services for a graduation party and highly recommended me. Tanner didn't realize it was my business until after he suggested it to Lisa. This information surprised me. I still don't get why Tanner would want to hire me knowing our history. Part of me wonders if he feels guilty and thinks this is a way to make things right. Or maybe he just truly wanted good catering and didn't think about how awkward it would be. Lisa seemed uncomfortable when she told me this, which makes me think she wasn't completely on board with the idea. It's strange to think that she might be the one who was hesitant in this situation. I made it clear to both Jenny and Lisa that this is a one-time thing. I will not accept any future orders from them. No matter how this turns out, I've set clear rules about communication. Everything should go through email whenever possible, and we'd only meet in person if absolutely needed to discuss order details. We had a meeting at a coffee shop to go over what they wanted. Lisa brought pictures of their planned theme, superheroes, and I took notes on what they liked. Tanner wasn't there, which was a relief. The order is really big. A large birthday cake, 4 dozen cupcakes, 6 dozen cookies, and several trays of different small cakes. About 50 adults and 15 kids are expected at the party. I'm charging them nearly triple my usual rate, partly because it was a rush order, they only gave me 2 weeks' notice, and partly because, well, the emotional toll. I don't see anything wrong with that. They could have said no and hired someone else. I've been working on preparations all week. I brought in my friend Amanda to help me with the baking because it's too much work for just Jenny and me. The party is this weekend, and I'm already starting to feel nervous about it. David has been incredibly supportive. He offered to come with me to deliver and set everything up, which I gladly accepted. Having him there will help me stay focused and professional. My mom thought I was making a mistake. She called me this week trying to talk me out of it, but when I told her I was charging them triple, she said she was proud. My sister Kate is more worried about how I'll handle getting out of there. She made me promise I'd call her right after the event. I keep telling myself it's just a job. I'm going to deliver the food, set up the dessert table, and leave. I don't need to socialize or pretend that we're all friends. I can be polite and professional for a few hours, put a large sum of money in my pocket, and move on with my life. It might not go as smoothly as I hope, but at least I'll have some extra money to cry into. Like I said, you can call me greedy, and I don't care. People don't start businesses doing what they love all the time. Many times, we have to sacrifice things. Other times, it's hours of sleep trying to get everything ready for a party with last-minute changes. Now, it will be seeing my ex and my former best friend. A few hours of discomfort and a happy walk to the bank. I'm also getting ready for things I expect to go wrong so they don't surprise me. For example, what if Tanner tries to talk to me? What about his family? I always liked his parents, and facing them might be harder than facing Tanner and Lisa. What if they try to introduce me to their son? Or worse, what if they act like I'm just a regular employee and not someone who is deeply involved in their lives? I have answers for that. What surprises me is that I haven't had any trouble sleeping this week. Significantly boosting your savings overnight does that to you. I mean, I used to stay awake worrying about how I was going to get the money to expand the business. Now I'm much closer. I've made several lists and schedules to make sure everything will be ready on time. Jenny suggested I send someone else to do the delivery and setup, but that seems unprofessional for an order this size. Plus, I need to make connections with potential clients who will be there. Networking is key to growing my business. Some of the money they paid was enough for me to buy a new professional mixer I had been saving up for, which is good news. This has also made preparing this order much faster, so far, so good. That scares me because when things go too well, they usually go wrong. 5 years ago, when the divorce was final, I never thought I'd be willing to be in the same room with Tanner and Lisa again. Yet here I am, getting ready to cater their son's birthday party. I'll update you after the party to tell you how it went. Either I'll have a horror story to share, or a business win that went extremely well, or maybe both. That's a possibility. Update 2. The party happened. I survived. It was as awkward as I expected, but there were also some surprising moments. They had rented a large event space. David and I arrived at the venue 2 hours before the party to set everything up. Jenny came with us to help. We brought everything in and started getting the dessert table ready according to the plan Lisa and I had agreed on. About half an hour into setting up, as I was putting cupcakes on a tiered stand, I heard a voice behind me that made me freeze. It was Tanner. He said hello casually. I managed to say a quick hello back before going back to my work. I thought that would be it, but he stayed there. Then he said something that completely shocked me. He apologized. It wasn't a full, detailed apology, but he said he was sorry for how things ended between us and for the things he said during our divorce. Then he had the nerve to tell me I looked amazing, better than the last time he saw me. Before I could even think of what to say, he went on to say that over the years he had thought about me, wondering what I was doing and how I was. He said that even though he was happy in his marriage, he sometimes missed me, especially my cooking. He specifically mentioned the chicken soup I used to make for him when he had a cold. I couldn't speak. My hands were shaking so much I had to put down the dessert plate I was holding. David saw this from across the room and immediately came over, making up an excuse that he needed my help with something else. He led me to a quiet corner where I could take a few deep breaths. David asked me if I wanted to leave, but I refused. I had been paid to do a job and I had been paid very well, so I was going to be professional and finish it professionally. After a few minutes, I went back to finish setting up the dessert table. I managed to avoid Tanner after that, but then something else unexpected happened. Tanner's father, Richard, saw me from across the room. Unlike Tanner, Richard had always been kind to me, even during the divorce. In fact, he was the only person in Tanner's family who reached out to me afterward to make sure I was okay. Richard came over and gave me a warm hug. He asked me about my business and seemed truly happy that it was doing well. He spent several minutes catching up with me and then met David. Richard immediately took a liking to David, and they chatted easily while I finished my work. Before leaving, Richard told me he would recommend my services to his friends and colleagues. He's a very well-connected businessman, so this could lead to valuable opportunities. At Richard's suggestion, I stayed longer than I had planned. The venue had provided lunch for all the vendors, and Richard insisted we join his table. David and I ended up staying for about an hour, during which I talked to several guests who raved about the desserts and asked for my business cards. I noticed Lisa watching me from across the room several times, but she never came closer. Tanner's mother also kept her distance, which was fine with me since she had taken Lisa's side during the divorce. We left before the cake cutting. Jenny stayed behind to handle that part and pack up afterward. Before we left, several guests asked about hiring me for their own events, and one woman wanted to talk about her daughter's sweet 16 party. When I got home, I received an email from Lisa thanking me for my work. She said all the guests loved the desserts. She also included an apology, although it was vague and could have been for anything from the affair to something that happened at the party. Jenny told me later that after I left, she heard Lisa and Tanner arguing in a corner. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but Lisa looked annoyed, and Tanner seemed defensive. My friend Amanda, who knows someone who knows Lisa, told me that Lisa and Tanner's marriage isn't as perfect as they want people to believe. They apparently fight often in public places like restaurants or at friends' gatherings. Amanda even heard they had a heated argument the morning of the party. I told Amanda I didn't want to hear any more gossip about them. Their relationship problems are no longer my concern, and obsessing over them won't change what happened or make me feel better. The money from this job will let me start looking for possible locations for my store sooner than I expected. This single event led to 3 confirmed bookings and several promising leads, all from party guests. David was my rock throughout the day. He stood by me, stepped in when needed, and knew exactly when I needed a moment to collect myself. When we got home that night, I baked him his favorite chocolate cake as a small way to show my thanks. I know many of you advised me not to take this job, but the job has given my business a huge boost. In the end, I'm proud of myself for getting through it with my dignity intact. I proved to myself that Tanner and Lisa no longer have the power to destroy me. That being said, I will not be accepting any more work from them. I know their daughter's birthday is coming up in a few months, and I suspect they might contact me again, but my answer will be a clear no. I don't think I can put a price on going through that a second time. Update 3. To give you some context, it's been about a month since the party. As expected, Lisa got in touch last week about her daughter's birthday in June. This time, she called my business line directly, not my personal line, instead of going through Jenny as we had agreed. I politely turned down the offer, saying I already had a full schedule for that date, which wasn't entirely false. I did have another smaller event booked. Lisa insisted, offering to pay even more than last time and suggesting they could change the date to fit my schedule. I stood firm and told her that while I appreciated their business, I wouldn't be available for any of their future events. She seemed surprised, but didn't push further. The good news is that the networking I did at their son's party has already paid off. Tanner's father, Richard, kept his word and referred me to several of his business partners. I've catered 2 corporate events as a result, both of which paid very well and have led to regular monthly orders for board meetings. The woman who approached me about her daughter's Sweet 16 party booked me for an elaborate dessert buffet, which was almost double the size of Tanner and Lisa's order. She also connected me with the event planner she works with, who added me to her list of preferred vendors. With all this new business, I've been able to hire Amanda part-time instead of just bringing her in for big events. Jenny now works for me almost full-time, handling bookings and customer communication, while I focus on the creative side and the baking. The most exciting thing is that I found a small shop that would be perfect for my business. It's in a good spot with lots of foot traffic, and the previous tenant also had a food business, so many of the necessary things are already there. I've put down a deposit and signed a lease that will start next month. David has been helping me plan the design and layout of the store. He has great ideas for the branding. We're spending more time together than ever, and yesterday he suggested we think about moving in together once the store is up and running. As for Tanner and Lisa, I've heard through the grapevine that their arguments have become more frequent. Richard called me last week to ask about catering an office party, and during our conversation, he mentioned that Tanner and Lisa are seeing a marriage counselor. He seemed worried about his grandchildren and asked how I was doing. We had a nice chat, and he asked me to keep in touch regardless of my history with his son. I've spent a lot of time thinking about the whole experience. 5 years ago, when I found out about their affair, I thought my life was over. I lost my husband, my best friend, and many of our mutual friends who took sides or just avoided the drama altogether. I was angry for a long time at them for betraying me and at myself for not seeing the signs sooner. Taking that catering job was risky, but it forced me to face the past in a way I might have kept avoiding. Being in that room with them showed me how far I've come. The pain isn't completely gone, but it doesn't control me anymore. Seeing Tanner and Lisa wasn't as devastating as I feared it would be. In fact, it was almost a letdown. These 2 people who once had the power to tear my world apart now seem smaller to me somehow. Their problems are no longer my problems. I used the money from their event to fund my future, a future that looks brighter than I could have imagined when I started my business 3 years ago. In a strange way, I have them to thank for that. The store will open next month, and we're planning a grand opening event. I've invited everyone who has supported me along the way, except for Tanner and Lisa, of course. Richard will get an invitation because he's not just a business contact, he's also a genuinely kind person. My business is doing really well. I'm in a healthy relationship with someone who supports my goals, and for the first time in years, I'm excited about what's next. Taking that job was uncomfortable, but it opened up opportunities I might have otherwise missed. Sometimes the hardest decisions bring the most unexpected rewards. I wouldn't recommend catering your ex-husband's son's birthday unless you charge 3 times as much. In my case, it turned out to be the turning point I needed. Update 4. I've received a lot of comments from people asking about my business, as well as Tanner and Lisa. The predictions were that they would divorce sooner rather than later, and they were right. My business is already running better than expected. It's been a real turning point because my income has increased 5 times in the months since I agreed to that event with my ex and my ex-best friend. I've had to hire more staff to run the store, as well as to handle deliveries for parties I can't attend because I'm getting more and more bookings, and so far, I haven't found a way to be in 2 places at once. My cousin Jenny is in charge of that, as she's been with me for many preparations before, and I believe she has the experience to represent the brand in the best way. So I've given her the responsibility of going with an employee to set up the tables, and she's done an excellent job. I could talk about business all day, but I don't want to bore you. That would be a good summary of the important parts. Now, Tanner and Lisa have filed for divorce. I'm still in touch with Richard, who has not only become a kind of friend, but is also giving me advice on business matters like dealing with the bank, managing suppliers, and other things he has more experience with than I do. He told me about the divorce, and also said it was about time because he had never liked Lisa. He said she was too bland for his son. He also said he doesn't know how I could have been friends with such a person since I am a warmer person. I don't know if that last part is true, but I also wonder how I could have been friends with such a person. Another important event, though I decided to not make a big deal of it, is a message from Tanner. He explained that he and Lisa were ending their marriage and that he would like to talk to me, maybe have a beer or coffee. My response was that I had nothing to talk to him about, and he was blocked. I don't know what the intentions of that message were, nor do I want to guess. I can't imagine anything I need to hear from him.